Welcome, everyone. Biff Bam Pop presents Kickstart This. I'm your host this evening, Mr. Josh Wallen, and I am joined by the folks at Toy DNA, Adam Van Wexler.
Van
How are you,
Wickler,
sir?
but close.
Winkler, my apologies.
It's okay.
Try to get. I'm so used to playing with myself, like it's and your screen name as well. But we're also joined by Mr. Phil Ramirez.
How you doing?
Glad to have you here, sir, and the legend himself, Mr. Jesse Falcon.
Hey, Josh, how you doing? Thanks for having us.
Our number one cheerleader.
Hey,
number one.
Everybody has to have it. I'm glad you didn't wear the skirt this evening, but we appreciate you being here. Oh, well, all right. Maybe for our visual viewers, we'll get to see that later. But wanted to have you guys on this evening. I appreciate you giving me some of your time, but I wanted to talk about this awesome new Kickstarter that you got lined up, the Cursed Dead. So I know that I have been following this project since you guys debuted it back at Designer Con in 2019. So
thank you.
I am thrilled to finally start seeing it come to fruition, and I'm hopeful that we can get some more eyes on the product so that we can get more backers and start unlocking some of those stretch goals. So as a reminder, before we get started, just so everyone knows, if you are backing the Kickstarter, and I strongly encourage you to do so, you will not be charged for it until it hopefully successfully funds on February 1st. So if you're interested in anything, I myself already have a couple figures lined up. And the nice thing about it is if throughout the conversation this evening, they happen to sell me on a couple more, I can always edit my pledge and I can get in what I want. So you can always make adjustments after the fact. So make sure that you go in, order immediately so we can start getting to those stretch goals and we can start talking about maybe unlocking some more goodies to go with those figures. But hey, remember, it doesn't charge your card until the campaign successfully funds on February 1st. So all that being said, gentlemen, talk to me about the Cursed Dead.
Yeah, the Cursed Dead. It's our 1/12 horror action figure line. Crazy amounts of articulation. It's meant to fit in with your 1/12 scale collections, whether you want to just have a Cursed Dead shelf or you want to use these guys as potentially villains in any of your other toy lines like this. We're happy to accommodate that as well. And it's basically our take on different classic horror creatures, monsters, as well as some of our own design. And Phil is the sculptor who he's been doing this. I mean, he's been sculpting stuff that I grew up playing with. And he designed some of the most awesome creatures here, and I'll let him speak to that.
Please.
Yeah, it was just it's the perfect line for us to start off with. It was a lot of monsters. It had a built-in audience. Everyone recognizes what monsters were. Everyone has you have a fan base of people that really enjoy monsters, and we thought this was a good way to start things with the skinny body monster.
Yeah, so you're starting things off with the skinny body monster. And so everybody knows, I mean, the toy business, we need to kind of like start priming the pump, as it were. So if we want to get some of those bigger monsters in the line, we need to have this fund successfully. So we're going to talk about a lot of the smaller scale bodies. The more hulking bodies may be in the works, and the bigger, bulkier bodies, we need to get this one to fund before we can get to those. So definitely keep that in mind. If you like what you see from what we're going to show here tonight, there's a lot more out there. So I strongly encourage you to follow the Cursed Dead on all of the socials. They're on YouTube, they're on Instagram, as well as X. And I think you're also on Blue Sky, if I'm not mistaken.
I mean, I am personally.
Okay.
Yes, so I'm promoting it on there as well. But yeah, for sure. And then
what about Thread? Are we on Thread?
I am as well, and I'm promoting it on there. But that's all playing with myself. But hey, we have the legendary Jesse Falcon with us as well. And Jesse, do you want to tell them like why are you here talking about the Cursed Dead? And why are you a legend?
Well, look, I'm a legend in my own mind for sure. But
Mine too.
I'll be honest with you. This is, when I've known Phil for the better part of 25 years. My brother Josh is involved in this. Adam and I have worked together for almost that long as well. So, when three of my closest friends were putting this together, I got excited about it because this is, frankly, the kind of thing that you don't typically see in the toy industry. This is very white space in that it's super gory, it's super horror themed, and so I was excited. Which is why I'm here. I want to help try to get the word out as much as I can with these guys, and I hope this funds because I kind of had a little window into what thoughts they've had to bring this line into the future. It's very exciting. I've been around the toy industry my whole life, really, and I want this thing to live, much like Dr. Frankenstein. I want to be screaming those fateful words someday. But also, it's just really cool. It's also, I've worked with Phil and have been partners with him on many different projects, and it's just really great to see him do build and design work again. I mean, I'm just looking at this picture right here, and there's just a lot of things that I love about Phil's work and always have, like his attention to detail, his sensibilities, I think, are really strong from a design perspective. So, and Phil and I have worked together on a lot of stuff that kind of, gets into this neighborhood from time to time. We've always tried to steer the boat as close as we can to this, but when we're working on a different property, there are rules, there are guardrails, there's guidelines. Sure. Sometimes there aren't, and I would say probably Resident Evil was one of those where it was like, oh, this is, we probably should have gotten a lot more flack from PETA when that line came out because of what we did to animals in the line, and we're selling it at like mass market toy stores,
right?
But I don't, we didn't, which that was nice. Nobody likes that kind of conflict, but that was a lot of fun to work on, and I know Phil and Adam and Josh are having a great deal of fun working on this line too.
So, and I mean, just to kind of, piggyback back off that, we're talking about a situation where you guys have been in the industry for a long time, serving other people, right? Let's be honest. So now that you get to kind of take those shackles off and free yourself, and it's, you get the final say, what are the challenges with all the onus being on yourself versus having to deliver for, say, a licensor?
Phil, you want to take this?
We get to, I mean, in the design aspect of it, we get to do whatever we want, which is really great. I mean, anything goes, and there's no governor. It's just literally whatever we want. And I'd like to go further and further, but we needed to make something that hopefully we could get made. That is the problem. If you're getting hired, it's getting made, or at least there's the potential. There's a huge potential for it getting made.
Literally, I am the bad guy here in this. That normally, we have to go through, in our day jobs, we have to go through approval process with like licensors or talent, or there's a whole laundry list of people that usually get some kind of say on what we're doing. But in this case, it's been me, I think, pulling Phil back a little bit because he has like people have already asked, and they're like, what about winged characters? And Phil sculpted, we have wings designed, and I am the one where it's like I've been in contact with our factory partners to provide the quotes, which is what we based all of our pricing off of, and stuff like wings. That's everything for making toys. This is steel tooling, so for plastic injection molding, and the bigger the cavity, the bigger steel tool, the more expensive it is. So I've had to actually pull Phil back on some of this because he's designed the wings. He's designed some amazing giant weapons. Now, that's not to say that these aren't things that can happen. It's just a matter of we need to hit the funding to be able to make the action figures first, and then hopefully in the future either build off of it, or if the campaign goes gangbusters, that kind of takes the wheels off the bus and we can go a little bit crazier. But Yeah, I have basically been the bad guy for Phil in this line.
Well, I understand. I recognize, and we've all been doing this for so long that we know what your limitations are.
Yeah.
And it's just a matter of like, can we afford to do this? Can we not afford to do this? Is this going to make this thing be able to be, can we get it tooled? Which is what this is all about, is like, let's try to get something made.
I could just provide like a little bit of consumer from my end, as somebody who invests in Kickstarters from time to time, I appreciate the fact that at least you guys know the business, and it's not going to be something where you're trying to sell us something that you ultimately can't deliver on. So
no, we really,
all of your years' experience are like really.
No, Adam's talked about this a lot, but if we deliver something bad, that completely reflects on us, on our careers. Actually, like it would be bad. It'd be really bad for us to turn in something that was bad to the consumer. We would be totally messing ourselves up.
Yeah, that we'd be shooting ourselves in the foot professionally. So like that is kind of we're trying to use that as a bit of a reassurance that, at the end of the day, we're going to make sure these things are awesome, because this isn't just a side gig for us.
Right.
This is kind of a continuation of our professional lives and like what, we would like to do, moving forward. So, these toys, we're going to give them our all. Like, this is going to be some high quality horror action figures at the end of the day.
I think that sometimes people can lose the whole appreciation of like, mom and pop businesses that start up and it's a passion project and things like that. Just because we're in the day and age of Kickstarter campaigns, there's still people out there still trying to accomplish that same dream of doing the thing that you love for the rest of your life, so you never have to work a day in your life. So I totally get all of that from that aspect, and I greatly appreciate it. So
there was a bunch of designs. There's figures that are done that needed really intricate clothing work, and we didn't know if we were going to get the factory to do a good job on it. So we just killed the characters. I mean, there's like
for the time
being, but there's like
we just tabled them.
We tabled them for now. Yeah.
This is why we don't let Phil come on podcasts by himself.
Yeah. If Josh has been following since DesignerCon, so in DesignerCon 2019, November of 2019, we displayed a whole bunch of stuff, including the second base body that we're hoping to do once we get to a wave 2. But there are characters that were based off of this original body type. The one that, and I'm super excited for, because it's a great concept. It's called the Bloodslinger, and he's like basically a cowboy vampire, and he's awesome. Like Phil's backstory and the character design and like the accessories. We haven't even shown off all of the accessories that he is intended to come with, and it's awesome. But it was just, there was so much to it. There was a ton of soft goods, ton of accessories, and it was like, we need to just table him for the moment, and he can be a great follow-up that, we won't necessarily have to do a full Kickstarter for down the road, because we'll have the tooling for that base body done. So then we can just focus on the other elements, and it's like, it would make for a great like store exclusive, or something where it's like we could put up pre-orders for as like a wave 1.5 or something along those lines. And we do have a number of characters that Phil has designed for this body type that we wouldn't necessarily need to do another Kickstarter for. So lots of stuff that are still like looming in the darkness.
Well, I like the sound of that. Let's dive into some of those character designs, so we can get into. I want to hear some of the lore about some of these characters and the different figures that Phil has done so amazing to create. Let's start off with the basic, the drinker, the brood.
Yes.
Phil, I want you to talk a lot about the story stuff, because honestly,
well, I mean, the vampire was. We wanted to do army builders, and I built a vampire that was aged, and the whole point of the body, if you look at it, It's got a lot of detail work going on, and it works with anatomy and plating. There's details, all sorts of different types of detail on the body, which as you paint, you add paint to different characters, you can literally change those plates to broken skin. You could change it to scales. There's so many ways you can do this. So the vampire was the first to start the whole thing. And we wanted to come up with a name like, obviously everybody loves the Walking Dead and all that stuff, and the Walkers. Everyone's had a cool name for something, and I've never heard vampires called the Drinkers. And so that's what kind of sparked it all.
I love it. It's such a gangly, creepy type design. You guys have already got me for 3 of these guys because I want to put them with
Which
my
one?
Mythic Legion vampires.
The Drinkers, got it.
Yeah, I had to get a 3-pack of the Drinkers, so I'm excited to get those.
Thank you.
Absolutely. So we get 3 heads with this. We get the 2 for the Drinker, and then each of 8 of the 9 figures in the wave come with the additional articulated skull head. Talk to me about that.
Well, that was Adam's idea, so I'll let him do that.
Phil gave me credit for something. Thank you. That I basically, so to tell you the truth, Josh, and like I have not mentioned this on any of the other streams that we've done so far, but the skull head, originally I had intended, I obviously follow lots of Kickstarters. I backed lots from my personal account, and action figures to like random stuff. But I love what Todd McFarlane does with his Kickstarter campaigns that he doesn't really need a Kickstarter for, but he's doing them anyway. And where he, instead of doing a stretch goal that's a whole new like item that goes with the stuff, he instead includes accessories with the base body. So he's basically giving you additional items to work with the thing that the Kickstarter is about. And I think it's a great idea. It's a great way to kind of give back when you're making money. So that was actually my initial concept for this skull head with the articulated jaw, was going to be, hey, this will be the first stretch goal where if we hit this dollar amount, we'll include this skull head with all of these individual figures. But it ended up, as we were starting to put it all together, as we were getting pricing from the factory, I was like, we're just going to include the skull head with the articulated jaw right off the bat with these figures. I think it's a cool selling point. And then as we were getting the paint masters and looking at it on each of these figures, it just looked so cool that all of the skull heads are painted so their deco matches the figure that it comes with. So Gordy's is green, and the Drinkers is that kind of like pale, gross, decrepit, fleshy color. And then you have the Gin that's got that kind of like weird reddish, but then we have Hate and Rage that are like a little bit more like jet black and crimson red, and Crankle has that eerie blue skull with him. So it's like they just looked so cool that I was like, this is a selling point that I think we just need to work into the initial figures. So yeah, as you mentioned, 8 of the 9 figures. The only figure that does not come with the skull head with articulated jaw is Dr. Crane, our fly morphed character that basically he has the most new tooling and he has some crazy soft goods going on. So obviously he was one of the figures that we got back from the factory that cost the most, but we wanted to kind of set these at 2 price points, the basic figures and the deluxe figures. So instead of changing his price point from the others, it was like, hey, you know what? If anyone's buying Dr. Crane, they're likely going to keep him as Dr. Crane due to his, unique asymmetry and the fact that he's like this awesome looking morphed fly scientist. So he is the only one that does not come with the skull head.
Yeah, I love the addition of the skull heads. You can make your own little like freaky little Power Rangers. If you army build enough of them with the different colors, I think it could get a little crazy. And because it's in the 6-inch scale, perfect addition to like a G.I. Joe classified shelf or anything for the Avengers to go after. These are like perfect little like fodder for all of your superheroes to just beat up on, outside of the fact that they're cool horror figures on their own.
Yeah, and it's like this kind of awesome, like Phil really ran, I just told him, I was like, make it a stylized skull that works with our base body, and it kind of has like almost like a zombie-esque vibe to it, like that is like, way less flesh obviously on it. But it just looked really, really darn cool, and I'm excited for it. I hope people also enjoy it, and one of the things I'm really looking forward to is pictures. Like I follow a ton of toy photographers, and I'm really hoping that people can really have a blast with it. Like there's some versatility here, and even though we did develop this as a toy line that has its own backstory and everything, I would love to see people integrate these with other figures. Like G.I. Joe's mowing down vampires or skull-headed guys. Like come on, I got a whole shelf of G.I. Joe classified over here ready for that to happen. So definitely our intent.
I'm excited for it. I know that, Phil, you've talked about the packaging in a few different places. So from what I recall, you are going to go with either books or VHS tapes based on the type of creatures we're looking at, demons or...
The old Dead will be the books, and the New Dead will be like a VHS tape, like an anthology series, and should look like an old beat up VHS tape.
Nice.
Okay, so the story's the Cursed Dead, and each character is like a vignette or an episode in the anthology.
I think it's probably Captain Obvious to everyone, but I like to over explain things. That the idea of the VHS tapes is to be really inspired by like 80s horror movie posters. Like, so it's like the VHS tape, it's like the proportions of a VHS tape. Ours is obviously going to be taller and deeper, but it very much like what Jesse and the Hasbro team did with the Marvel Legends, like the X-Men and Spider-Man figures that are in that VHS inspired packaging. So it has those proportions, but instead of cartoony, ours are going to be like B movie horror poster kind of inspired look.
I think NECA did something similar to that with their Universal line, didn't they?
Absolutely. Yes.
Yeah. I think that'll look phenomenal. I as soon as I heard about it, that was one of the big selling points for me as well. If you got decent packaging that you can display on your shelf, and it's not just throwaway that you need to put out to recycling, I'm all for a nice looking display box to go with it. So I'm excited about that. So this is going to be then the drinkers are going to be part of the old Dead, from what I'm hearing.
I think they might be the new.
They're part of the new.
We haven't really discussed which ones, but I know for sure the demons are all old school.
The demons, yeah. So we have 3 characters that are straight up demons, and that's the Jinn and then Hate and Rage. So those are definitely all the old book format.
Okay.
I think the rest of our characters are the newer monster creatures that are then going to be VHS inspired packaging. Okay. And then the 2 stretch goals, I will say, I'll straight up say this. The first stretch goal, which we've spoken about a little bit what it is, that would be the new monster. So that would be VHS. But the second stretch goal that we haven't really spoken as much about, that's straight up demon. So that would be old book.
Perfect.
Yeah.
All right. Awesome. I love to hear that. So then if we're talking about the drinker, then before we move on to the gin, Phil, what are some of the movies that would be around that VHS in the video store if we were going to rent it?
Evil Dead, 1 through 3, obviously. I mean,
old school Peter Jackson.
Yeah, Peter Jackson. I mean, Jesse and I spent a lot of our 20s watching horror movies together.
30s and 40s, and a bit of a
30s.
yeah. I mean, honestly, like, let me jump in there too. Like, you know, you want your rawhead Rexes, because honestly, Peter Jackson's, Sam Raimi, that stuff's great. But what's also great is the not great stuff in my mind, like the stuff that is just kind of like, thrown out there. The Stuff, another great schlocky horror movie. Obviously, anything Cronenbergian, kind of like, I would even throw Alien and Aliens in there. What else, Adam?
Yeah, no, the Cronenberg stuff, obviously, with some influences on Dr. Crane, and then Dr. Scante would also probably step into that vein. But like
Night of the Living Dead.
I feel like Scante is a little bit of a deeper cut. Like Scante feels more like a kind of 50s, 60s, like almost
50s,
black and white.
Yeah.
Sci-fi film.
Luna Mutant kind of vibes to him too. For sure. And then I really the one that I think we're gonna actually tease and show our initial prototype for the packaging is for our Wendigo, and that's got some John Carpenter vibes too. That is really kind of awesome. And yeah, when I saw that artwork, I was like, all right, this is it. So I'm really looking forward to showing that. I don't know exactly when we're going to do that. We're nearing the halfway point of our campaign, so probably in the nearish future. But yeah, John Carpenter for sure.
Love it. Can't wait to see it. Let's move on to the gin. I'm excited about the gin. Talk to me about the inspiration for this demonic character.
Genie. I mean, it's like it was like an old genie that has just been passed around throughout the years, throughout the centuries. Of course, it destroys anyone that actually tries to use it. And the head, the actual lamp, is a severed head of a king, which you can see it's upside down. And all the plating on it is like drilled into the skull. So that whole bottom of the underneath of it is a skull cut in half, and you can see all the inside of the skull, and just dipped in copper, and it's all just metal pieces applied to a dead man's head. And the ball in the center of the thing is the demons all have a blue orb that is part of what kind of keeps them together in a linear manner in our storyline.
Love it.
And that blue orb, we're intending that in production to be like a translucent kind of blue with some hazy paints and stuff. So you'll see it in both Hate and Rage, and it's opaque in our prototypes. But the idea is to have that as kind of like a semi-translucent, like awesome glowy kind of vibe to it.
Yeah, the other two demons have it implanted in them. Hate has I always mix them up, but one has it in his mouth.
Rage, yeah, which one?
Yeah, and the other one has
Rage is the red one. Hate is the black one.
Rage is in his mouth, and Hate is it's in his head.
Yeah. And then Jesse has to earmuffs for a second, but our Jin is a genie, and I really would like to do like a blue painted variant because of a famous genie that some people may or may not know of.
You have
but
to.
It also like this because this character, when Phil showed it to me, the initial sculpt for it, I was like, this thing looks awesome, and it gives me some of the vibes of the bad guy in the most recent Ghostbusters movie. So it's like I feel like a blue one would look really cool as a variant. But
when did you sculpt this, Phil? What year?
This is 3 years ago, 4 years ago. It might have been 4 years ago.
It was before Ghostbusters.
Oh yeah, it was way before Ghostbusters.
Cool. Nobody owns the color blue, guys.
Are you sure?
Oh yeah. Okay. Somebody owns the
So
color.
we're looking at some of these other the glamour shots that your buddy from Toy Migos, Cheney, did.
Janie.
Yeah, he did a great job with some of these shots. He got some really cool ambiance going on. And then we had a lot of guys in the toy community have helped with this, So Cheney did some great shots of pretty much all of our characters, which we're kind of starting to tease out there during the course of the campaign. Punker Mike painted 2 of the characters and did some photography for us as well. And then Nico Hodge, who goes by Artman Customs, painted the Crankle. So it's like we've actually, we have industry friends, we have toy community friends, and we kind of like Avengers assembled a really cool crew to help get all of these things together and presentable. So very grateful to all of the guys that were involved.
Lots of talented folks.
Yeah. And then
There's
this is the Jin with his included skull head that has the articulated jaw as well.
Yeah, and so here you could see kind of the color scheme, how you're talking about, like it's going to carry over into each of the different skulls. It'll kind of complement the body that it goes with it. So yeah,
Right.
love this. Fantastic. Let's move on to Gordy.
This is like a fan favorite, it seems. And then like obviously like it's cool because it gives you that kind of like it's weird to say this word in association with this line, but it's kind of like a comfort feel of like having like this type of character. And I know when I first read the bio for Gordy before, like as I was getting into editing it all down, I was just like, I can't, like, this is perfect. Like this one is the one that should be a movie yesterday. Like it's so perfect, and I love the concept behind it, but I shouldn't talk about it. Phil, talk about Gordy.
Let me jump in. You know what movie it reminds me of is The Scarecrow. The guy, the actor who played in LA Law. He was in LA Law. He was kind of the office male guy in LA Law, and he played a person with developmental. He was like a developmentally disabled individual.
Oh yeah.
That actor, very very specific look on that actor. He was in a movie called The Scarecrow, where again I think he played a developmentally disabled individual, and
you just had that look, Jesse.
Yeah, he had been. There was a crime in the movie The Scarecrow that he did not commit, and these guys chased him up into the Scarecrow and they killed him, and then he kept coming back. I remember that movie scaring the pants off me when I was a kid. But this story that Phil came up with for Gordy, it reminds me a lot of that. Yeah. It's got those vibes. If we're talking about that wall of VHS tapes.
Yeah.
This kid gets killed and comes back as a demon pumpkin, and every
that is
time
the worst pitch I've ever heard in my life. Kid gets killed.
No, you guys. Hey, I can just jump.
The elevator doors haven't opened yet. You have more time. You know, get into the story.
He gets killed and he comes back as a pumpkin demon, and every time he takes the life of the people that wronged him, a new face appears on his pumpkin face.
That's the cool part. And then Phil was speaking to this earlier when he was talking about the sculpt, but what's really cool so Punker Mike is the guy behind the paint deco on this one, and you could really see where a lot of the detail that he went in and painted, it gives you those vibes of like vine, like, you know, that's part of the Gordy's backstory, is that his family owned a farm and pumpkin patch, and the pumpkin vines and everything kind of grew into his body, and you know, he comes back and takes vengeance on all of these guys, and it's like the paint job really kind of helps sell that idea of the vines and everything growing into his body and giving it life as this like demonic vengeance character that's really, really creepy.
And it just goes to show how like the perfection in the sculpt itself to be able to be so transitional across different appearances, different likenesses. So Phil, you did just an outstanding job in regards to just your attention to detail is on point.
Thank
I
you.
just absolutely love this. I just want like Gordy holding up like Linus as like the Great Pumpkin.
And then Josh, just to continue off of the sculpted detail stuff, and something that we've teased a little bit is our first stretch goal is Phil's take on the Gillman, like the creature from the Black Lagoon, an underwater army builder creature, and the sculpt detail on this body works unbelievably well, and that character does have a bunch of unique new tooling to it as well. So yeah, new hands, new feet, new head that's multiple parts, and like it is really freaking cool looking, and I really want to be able to show it off. We just need to get closer to that goal before we start, putting that cart in front of those horses.
Well, Gillman is my favorite Universal monster, hands down. So I am excited to see the Mangler once it finally gets revealed. And I plan on going back and changing my pledge once it gets unlocked, so I can make sure.
Hopefully you like it.
I'm excited. The only thing I got to take issue with you, because you mentioned on one of the other streams that you didn't like the little
dangle.
doodad.
That's my fault. That was
That's
all
fine.
my call. It's it was I want it to be because like the story, because we discussed the story to it first, because we always wanted to do obviously our takes on some of the classic monsters, so we knew it was coming. But then we got into the story and like that, hey, no, this isn't just one, like, creature from the Black Lagoon is a one-off-ish creature. It's like, no, these guys you're terrified. They're in the depths, and there's a lot of them. So it became a design element that just seemed too specific in general, that didn't like lend itself to that idea of like, hey, there's a whole horde of these that you have to be freaked out about. And Phil kind of, like in an angler fish, that element it's usually it's a glowing element.
Mhm.
And Phil was like, okay, if we lose that, then what glows on these guys is their eyes. And that's a bit of new info for you guys, but like, these things are freaking badass. So
Okay.
definitely looking forward to showing off our plans there.
If we're getting the functionality somewhere else, the transition, I'm with it. I'm intrigued. You have my attention. Let's talk more.
All
right. Again, more incredible photos by Cheney. So awesome work.
Cheney did a great job getting some, like whether it's smoke effects or he's using his vape pen, I don't know, but it creates an ambiance and like this eerie mood that really works well with our line. That it's just really cool. And I know we showed off some preliminary images of his for Hate and Rage, the demons, during a Toy Migos stream that I have not yet posted. Might be posting this week as well, but really cool stuff. And I will also tell you that we packed up a few of the paint masters and shipped them off to another well-known photographer in the toy industry / toy community that we're hoping make it in time for our campaign as well. So there's more to come on pretty images. I'm the guy who just takes those white background images. So I think it helps for product shots, but not quite as exciting as some of these shots, which, that's these guys, hats off to them.
I mean, that's part of the beauty about, the figures themselves. They're just blank canvases for others to create something entirely unique. And I mean, what Phil might have had in his head is completely different than how I might perceive it once I get it in a photo booth. So that's part of why I love this culture and why I love action figures and still playing with my toys to this day. So love this. Here's the green head on the Gordy body, the green skull.
Yeah,
love that.
I love this one because like he almost like has like vibes where it's like, hey, he's not necessarily just a pumpkin man anymore. This one starts to feel a little bit rotted flesh, zombie-esque skeleton guy a little bit too. So it's like some more versatility to what you get, you know?
I also feel like the
Absolutely.
coloring on this particular version of the body looks really, it's one of my favorite. It's just really calls out the plating, and how, like, in some, when it's monochromatic, when it's just one color, it almost, you don't notice it, and then when you call it out in color, it's like it's a completely different sculpt.
I agree. Yeah, fantastic work. Unbelievable. All right,
Talking about
getting
you,
into the getting into the Demon Brothers. So Hate and Rage.
Hate and Rage. Phil, do you want to talk about the Demon Brothers?
No, you got it.
So the demon, that obviously these are part of the demons, and they're orbs, and the orbs tie into like our bigger storyline with these are kind of found objects that are then part of some of these demons, and Hate and Rage are basically to be blamed for a lot of past destruction on the planet over many years as people try to harness control of them. And as Phil mentioned earlier, you have the orbs are in different areas. So the Jinn has it in his lamp, Rage has it in his mouth, Hate has it in his forehead, and these guys, those three are kind of our, for lack of a better term, our villains, at least until we get to our second stretch goal. Then we have yet another villain in there as well.
Love it. Yeah, these look phenomenal. I will say the figure photography does these a lot better than what these do.
For sure. And I will say that I have also not posted pictures yet of Hate and Rage with their skull heads on, and they both really look phenomenal with their deco matched skull heads. And Hate and Rage, because we intend them to be kind of a pair in our storyline, they are also available at a discounted bundle as part of the Kickstarter kit. So if you wanted to buy, like, say you want to buy 3 drinkers, but you also are intrigued by Hate and Rage, you can back for the 3 drinkers. And the Hate and Rage, while they are available as a tier itself on the initial Kickstarter, they're also available as a discounted bundle in add-ons. So you do the drinker 3-pack, and then you could do an add-on for Hate and Rage, and you save yourself $5 on those guys as well. So definitely check out the different bundle options if you're interested in multiple characters, because all of them are available as both reward tiers and add-ons. So you can kind of combine. It's like stacking coupons on top of each other.
Love it. It's almost giving me like the Grey's Anatomy vibes, where we're getting like the you could see all the tendons and the muscle underneath. It's like the red body on this is going to be absolutely fantastic. Excited for this one. All right.
The Rage in particular also kind of, I think Phil has talked about too, has like almost like molten lava-y kind of stuff going on with the plates and everything. So it starts to really kind of give you this like, oh, he's heating. Like he is definitely giving off a lot of heat.
Have you guys considered, assuming everything is successful down the road, looking at anything like maybe some translucent colorways down the road?
We definitely some people in various social media we've been talking back and forth with them about ideas, because like paint variants and accessory sets and all sorts of options there, and like, trust me, we have all sorts of things that we would like to do, but I would like to get some more feedback from people that are fans of this stuff and that like what they see, as far as, would they want full paint variants? Would they want just accessory sets with swappable heads and hands that may have like some blood and gore on them, or like some elements of like translucent side. Like the opportunity is, once we're funded, the opportunities are endless. Like
Sure.
we'll go full bore. We can't wait. So I would like to kind of maybe put out some polls and stuff and find out what people are the most interested in.
I will say the one thing that has been a little bit different lately, with what Savage Crucible did, the slate figures with none of the paint on them. I thought those were fantastic.
Yeah,
At a little
I
bit of a
have one of
discount for
those as well, yeah.
customizers. So if
And
you
I just got
guys were to
the feet for it too as well.
there you go. So if
Yeah.
you guys are looking for things like that, I'd be all about getting some of these bodies to customize up. It'd be fantastic.
Yeah, that's you're not the first one to mention that as well, because a lot of people, obviously we're about to step into the deluxe land where we start bringing in the soft goods, and a lot of people are talking about, hey, they want to do some custom work, and our skinny bodies in general with soft goods that are out there, whether you're grabbing them on eBay or from a talented member of the toy community that's selling on Instagram or Facebook. It's like our body is going, it's gonna fit stuff very, very nicely, because it's like, you have room, and the base body itself is articulated like you guys wouldn't believe.
Yeah, I love it. And I mean, it almost feels blasphemous to put some soft goods over a nice articulated body like that. But Phil, you've got a little bit of background as far as those soft goods are concerned. Do you want to talk a little bit about your family history with that?
My family are tailors. So I worked in a tailor shop from the age of 13 to 16, and I've been around it all my life. So I've got a moderate understanding of how clothing fits and how it lays on the body and whatnot. I had to do a lot of alterations as a kid. But yeah, it helps understand what's going to work, what's going to move, what you can get away with, and yeah, it helps.
And no one's ever complained about soft goods in the toy industry ever. So I mean, I think just having a little bit of insight's definitely going to help go a long way for this.
Yeah, hopefully.
Hopefully, let's talk about our first deluxe figure here with Dr. Scante.
Yep, he's a total throwback to like the 1950s, just weird scientist turned monster. Just military involvement in his backstory, and just a guy who had something blow up in his face and changed him forever.
Love it. I'm getting if we're gonna fantasy cast this guy, we going like a little Walter White action? Is that what we're doing?
I like that.
Yeah, we'll go that route. I like that. The little ray gun looks very retro as well.
Yeah, it's a little throwback to the 50s.
For sure.
Yeah. I did a lot of research to find something that was old school, and like not quite exactly looking like everything else, but kind of it's a nod. It's like 4 different guns put together that I've found throughout a bunch of researching. But the 50s, I love all that 50s stuff.
Has me so excited. Like, not just like, it's like I want to use it for Dr. Scante, but I also want to just use it with other toys. It's got such a cool, like, it's like, how awesome Deadpool would look with that blaster.
Sure.
Like, it's just ridiculous.
What type of color treatment are you looking to put on it? What colorway or anything like that?
We're still trying to figure that out, but
Okay.
I think a lot of golds. Jess, do you have any suggestions for that?
For the gun?
Yeah. What colors would you give it?
I always like red ray guns for the past. I don't know, to me that looks more like a toy gun inspired by Flash Gordon or Buck Rogers.
Yeah.
Like the early interpretations. And I think whenever I remember seeing those were always like red and gold, red and silver.
Yeah, red and gold sounds about right. Or silver too. That works too. Yeah, the red and silver might actually work really well. We haven't painted one yet, obviously.
Yeah,
sure.
We're actually, it's funny that you mentioned it. It's like, I just asked Renee to print that, because we do need to paint that, and it's happening. So that will be shown before the end of the campaign for sure. and it was just something that was an oversight on our part that we hadn't painted it already, and it's like, no, we need to get on that. So it's happening.
You heard the thought
right
process
now.
of how to get whatever color this ends up with. You heard the thought process of it right here live.
Right
on your
here.
show.
Yeah.
I love it. We appreciate it. We'll always take it. All right. Moving on to probably the one that I think everybody is most excited about and has probably the most buzz, no pun intended, around it, but Dr. Crane.
Yeah. This is the one I was like, I want to make this toy. This is 100% the toy that I wanted.
100% fill across the board, like no notes. Like this is, I saw it for the first time, and I actually saw it completed for the first time at Designer Con in November of 2019, and I was just like, okay, this thing is hideous and I love it.
Yeah, this is 100% up my alley. I wanted to make this toy. Like this is if everything falls apart, if I have this toy in my hand, I will be so excited. And I built it so that if worst case scenario, I keep the 2 up, because this is exactly my cup of tea. Completely abstract proportions. I was able to use the skinny body but build off of it, so it's like so we create an entire new arm that's way too big, and it's able to support its own weight. It's a lot of body horror. It's just a mess. It's great. I love this thing.
The weird appendage that's coming off his shoulder also is it's a ball and socket, so it's like posable itself as well.
There's a lot of ball and socket work throughout the arm, over here as well. Everything's just kind of, you'll pop it together. Yeah. I thought about it in terms of, so it doesn't have to be that difficult to produce. And it's, it should move really well.
Can we port other items onto it down the line if maybe there's further mutations that he develops?
I mean, be way into that.
Yeah. I mean, this looks fantastic.
It just looks like, if you go back and look at, if you've ever seen any behind the scenes making a, werewolf movie or a movie like The Fly, there's always like a progression of like deformation. And I feel like this is, this isn't even past the first bar, of like what could, be happening here.
It's like a 4 out of 10. Yeah.
And
exactly.
It's straight up, it's teased in the bio, like I'm the one who insisted on these like bio stories for all of the characters, and it's the human insects. So there's gonna be more of this in our future, if we're given the opportunity.
Yeah, it looks fantastic. This looks, I know you worked at Playmates obviously back in the day, or had a cup of tea with Playmates, and this looks like anything that you would have handed over for Baxter Stockman, and they would have just said, yeah, no, too much, sorry. And like you saved all of that for your own.
Baxter's a very cute fly.
Yes.
Not so much here.
I love the old school. The old school fly is great. The Cronenberg stuff is fantastic. I grew up with all that stuff. It's all rattling around in here.
I know that you've been mentioning the substance quite a bit lately, but very much lots of body horror going on here.
This is very tame.
Yes.
Like what we can really do, and what I'd really like to do is a lot further.
Well, I hope we can get there, because I definitely think that there's a market out there for it, and I'm hopeful that we can get to some of those bigger bodies as well.
Me too.
All right. Wendigo Wednesdays happening over on Instagram. So I'm excited about this Wendigo figure.
That's my fault, because I just love this thing. So I've been driving around with the prototype, and just bringing him to random locations that don't really make much sense for a Wendigo, but that's part of what I love about it is how much nonsense I can get into with this action figure. But the Wendigo is literally one of the creepiest. Like when Phil first showed me the deer skull, I was just like, hell yeah, this thing is awesome. It looks the unmasked head, I think, is scary and great, but then when you have the whites of the eyes of like the zombie-esque Wendigo peering out through the deer skull, it's like
which
game over. This is
I learned. Well, Jesse, I learned a lot about deers from Jesse because of his family. They do that. They hunt and they have some cool stuff on their walls, and the horns. I made them completely ridiculous. Like there's no chance that could ever happen. And then putting a deer skull on in your face, you can't see through it. Like I learned that. So I had to create a skull that would make that work. And so there's a lot of boring out of the eyes. And while I started doing that, it turned into just like, okay, what if this thing existed? How much pain would it be in to live? And that's where the skull came from. Just
the teeth are all crazy too,
yeah,
right?
Teeth are coming out like this. It's literally that thing would be in constant pain. Just to grow those horns would be a lot of pain. So
yeah, it's this is one where again you got some decent figure photography that Cheney took, if I'm not mistaken, that you've shown before. This one is I'm not in yet. But this is the one where I'm like, it's not going to take much to push me over the edge to order up a Wendigo. I think.
There's definitely more Wendigo images coming that are not just from me. So be on the lookout for those, and I think they might help sell you on it because, like I said, this is one of my favorites from the line.
Well, the Wendigo is constantly in hunger, so that's why he's got no lips because he's eating them off. And he's constantly scratching at his face to take tastes.
Gross.
Yeah, the eyes are dead. His accessory is a cut off arm that's just been chewed to pieces. There's bites everywhere, and it's like it's the ultimate club.
I love it.
And I mean, if you get that arm and you like look at it. I went in and like all the musculature is in there, like every angle you can see inside of the guy.
I feel like you used this to kind of like work through some things, Phil. Is that
so
fair?
many things to work through, dude?
Yeah, this whole toy line is just ripe with Phil working through issues.
Yeah, exactly.
Well, speaking of issues, let's give some little kids some issues. Now I gotta say, you did an awesome job, Phil, the other day explaining what this was, and I didn't get that from the Kickstarter. Like the page itself doesn't have a bio, but you did. I wasn't like I like the spooky video. I like all of that, but the way you set it up, as far as this being an alien that is Santa Claus's biggest fan, like talk to me more about that, please.
I just thought the idea of an alien kind of trying to figure out human culture and then figuring out what Santa Claus was and like really becoming like a super fan of Santa Claus and then taking it upon himself to be like, I'm going to help this guy out because he's really against kids looking at him or catching a glimpse of him. So I'm going to kill kids that stay up to watch to get a glimpse of Santa Claus and take their parts and put them on a Christmas tree, which is his offering to Santa Claus.
Terrifying.
So it's completely twisted character.
I love it. I love it. It's so badass. It's like Jack Skellington is doing the things that, why bother kidnapping Santa Claus when we could just kill the kids that are insulting him?
It's like it takes, because like we have teased on our Instagram our take on Krampus, and Krampus is cool. Like it's like, don't get me wrong, I'm very excited about Krampus, and Phil's take on Krampus is actually really, really twisted and awesome as well. But Krankle kind of kicks it up a notch, and this is another one like Gordy that it's just like, this could be a movie tomorrow very
100%.
easily, and an instant Christmas classic as well.
Well, I read it to kids. When I first wrote it, I read it to a bunch of kids. and they were like, "Is that real?" I was like, "No, I just wrote that." They were like, "This
Yes,
is terrifying."
yes, it's real now. I just
Yeah.
created it.
Yep.
Make it
Kids don't
happen. We need.
kids don't particularly like the story.
Yeah, no, it's because it's terrifying.
Yeah,
It's fantastic. And here
It really
again,
plays into that whole like, you know, kids being frightened in general of like when they're in bed and something kind of, you know, like eyes, you know, just kind of peering open just a little bit, and it's like, oh no, Crankle knows, so you know, you better be as still as a snowman and close those eyes. Like it's just like that's terrifying.
I love
yeah.
it. I love it.
And then, yeah, there's a naked Crankle with his included skull head with the articulated jaw.
And one more thing here, the mask, it's the friction, it's held
Yeah.
on just on its own, but it's supposed to be like more of a plastic mask that he's
Like
has gotten bloody.
yeah, but Nico did such a good job of the paint, and somebody made the comment that it was like a mall Santa that he skinned his face off of, which is pretty great.
Yeah, now like it's like I think we need to lean into that because
Yeah.
I love that as a story.
That was somebody's comment, and I thought that was pretty great.
Like,
Nico
Crankle
painted it
and-
so well. It looks real.
Yeah, and an alien that's obsessed with Santa. Can you imagine him finding a Santa imposter?
Yeah,
And
exactly.
what he would do to it? You know,
Yeah.
like there's something story-wise that just
Absolutely.
It's one part Killer Clowns from Outer Space, one part Krampus, and one part Silent Night, Deadly Night.
Yeah.
there you go.
Love it. Writes itself.
It's just a gumbo of horror stuff.
Yeah. Which all good things should be, right? Why not?
Yeah.
All right. So those are the 9 figures as part of the Kickstarter. Lots of articulation on these things. And that's something that I know that is really important to you guys as far as making sure that you have the utmost articulation going on.
Yeah, I'm the articulation junkie. I mean, like obviously, like Jesse, like he's the one that I would blame for a lot of this in general. You know, like I did tell a story the other day where it's like I grew up with Star Wars action figures, the old Kenner 5 points of articulation, but then I really found my love for articulation when the G.I. Joe line came out, and I was like, hey, why don't my Star Wars figures move like these G.I. Joes do? So that was the intro for me for like articulation in general and how much I loved it. And then I remember like I would buy figures that had action features, whether it's Masters of the Universe or even the early ToyBiz stuff. And I would literally break some of the action figures to free up articulation. And I always loved the figures that had a little bit more articulation in them. And then obviously with Spider-Man Classics and Marvel Legends, that just kind of opened the door, I think, even in the toy industry. It was a lot of influences from Japanese toys and Microman and all sorts of other places. And I think Jesse's even spoken to it about the wooden drawing models that you use for art. And it's like
This one right here.
Exactly. Like that, and just in general, articulation has always been very important to me. Phil has done a ton of articulated figures, but it was like when we were doing this, it was like, no, we need to make this thing crazy posable. And the fact that we were leading off with this kind of skinny body, it was like, I want this thing to be able to be folded in half. So Phil was designing a lot of the sculpt and the creepiness around making sure that this thing would be a ridiculously posable action figure. So one of the things with that exploded view that you showed earlier, this figure, all of our figures are fully engineered factory, like that's Phil and I do prototyping for a living for every toy company you can imagine. So we're not coming into this Kickstarter with like, hey, here's our ideas. This is fully fleshed out. This is what we would hand over to a client like Hasbro or Mattel that they would then send to their vendors overseas to begin manufacturing. So this stuff is fully engineered, factory ready. When we get funded, this project is ready to go. Like, there's not like, oh, we need to wait and finish this stuff up. It's like, nope, hand it over, cut the check for the first 50% deposit to the factory, and we're off to the races. So yeah, I think our experience there is also tantamount to like how we can get this going as soon as we have the capital to get the manufacturing process underway.
Yeah, absolutely. As a huge fan of Four Horsemen Studios and Mythic Legions, I mean, I'm all about my pre-orders and the long and agonizing wait to get my product. So the fact that you guys have this all ready to go, and it's just a matter of once, hopefully we get it funded, it's a matter of getting the files over and starting to get, final approvals and whatnot going. That's huge. So you're hoping to have these in everybody's hands. If I'm not mistaken, you had mentioned, again, obviously the world can change, but we're shooting for March, April 26.
Yep, that's the idea. Obviously, barring any unforeseen circumstances, which of course we will. Being part of the industry and also really loving like looks behind the curtain, we fully plan on sending out regular updates, and I'm super nerdy for the whole manufacturing process, so I would like to share those kind of updates with everyone as well. Not when you're working for a big company, you're dealing with a lot of corporate policy and politics, and answering to a lot of different people. We only have to answer to ourselves here, so we can pull back that curtain and show a lot of the inner workings, like how to make the sausage, and we fully intend to do so. Like, we're gonna be very transparent about the whole process. But yeah, March of 2026 gives us over a year to get these into people's hands, which I think is realistic based on the factories that we have spoken with. So that is where we're at right now.
Well, I'm a big fan of under promising and over delivering, so I appreciate at least the effort being put in up front for that. The articulation is amazing. Everything looks incredible on these figures. I just need to get them on my shelf because this is just ridiculousness right here. I mean, we don't need drinkers doing the splits, but damn it, they can if they need to.
Exactly. I mean, like, I had a blast taking these photos because I was just like, well, I would never pose them like this, on my shelf, but it was humorous, and at the same point, like, it's like, hey, getting these guys into these poses, and it's like it really kind of showcases the amount of movement, and the torso alone is something that I'm really happy with, the amount of articulation and range of motion we were able to cram into a torso, because a lot of the times you're just limited with space based on human anatomy, so obviously the drinker has creature anatomy, so we were able to like kind of work around some problem areas in order to fit this ridiculous amount of articulation and range of motion.
Yeah, it looks phenomenal. I'm not always a big fan of the ball on the hip, but it works for this design. So
Yeah.
I think it's awesome. I can't wait to get these on my shelf.
I agree. Like, a thigh, like a straight thigh swivel has been like what a lot, like, we actually, I don't want to take credit for it, but Gentle Giant, I think, introduced it for the Hasbro Marvel Legends really early on with like the Bucky cap body,
Mhm.
back for Return of Marvel Legends back in the day.
Yep.
So we prototyped that at Gentle Giant Studios. It's not, we didn't invent that, but it was something that we kind of brought into the forefront for Marvel Legends. But at the same point, it's like we want to hide articulation, like I'm a giant fan of articulation, but I want to incorporate it into the sculpt in a way that it doesn't hurt the eye. And the amount of detail that Phil put into the figure, that this style actually fit better into the design than just having a straight cut because of like this weird organic stuff that he had going on in the sculpt. It was like, oh no, this actually works better. And the functionality is the same. It's just a matter of like aesthetics, and aesthetically it kind of worked better with the drinkers. So that's why we went with this. That's not to say it's going to be the same on our future bodies that are a different size, though.
Good to know. Appreciate that. All right. So, Phil, I know that you started off your career actually physically sculpting, and now you've moved over into the world of ZBrush. Can you talk to me a little bit about like what's the challenges moving from physically modeling something into a digital realm?
Well, you first and foremost, you have to learn the program, which is, if you've done it traditionally all your life, it's some of the things are kind of counterintuitive, but once you understand it and you figure out the program, it makes things move really quickly. And I mean, I still don't know how to use so much of the program's so vast and so big and does so many things. I can't even, I still don't know how to do, because it's just, it's incredible. But I've learned to sculpt with it, and it takes so little time now to get an idea across. At least it does the other half for you. I mean, that symmetry was always the thing that took the longest in traditional sculpting, and now you just make one side and it's done. You do some changes afterwards. So it took me a while. I'm not all that bright to begin with, and it took me a couple of years to figure out the program, but once I did, it did make things easier. That's for sure. I do miss traditionally sculpting, but at this point, it has to be digital anyway. So if you do sculpt something traditionally, it has to be scanned and it has to be put into the digital format anyway. So, you know, I've done some other stuff where I've sculpted traditionally, but I had to scan it anyway. And then once you get it into the computer, you're like, well, I got to fix that. I got to fix this. I got to fix that. And you see all your problems that you did with traditional sculpting. Yeah. So, but it definitely makes things a lot faster. And the engineering is incredible. I mean, it's just incredible. There's no way you could do that by hand. I mean, you could maybe, but it's just so much easier and so much more accurate. You can get so many little tolerances. It's wild where it's at now. Yeah.
Jesse, how about from your end, when you're getting some of those designs back, are you seeing like quicker turnaround times now that it's moved to digital? Like, what were some of the problems that maybe that digital is solving for you, and maybe some of the problems that it's also creating?
Digital's a tool like anything else, you know. I mean, you know, toy design now compared to what it was when I started in the business is a lot different. You know, like when I met Phil, like he would have to literally individually wrap every single component of a wax sculpt up and FedEx it to me, you know, wait a day or so, get it in the office, rebuild it. Everybody would come over, we'd all look at it, we'd ooh and ah, and then we'd, you know, send it back. You know, that was the process. Now it's literally like you know, sending an email. So so it does make things a bit quicker. Also, I think making adjustments when you're working with a factory, you know, that's if you've got a design team that is doing stuff like that, it does make it a lot easier to make modifications if things do have to change in that level. But you know, it does speed things up a lot. But to Phil's point, you know, I look at Phil, and Phil's an artist, you know, and you know, like he had to switch mediums. I'd say halfway through his career, maybe a little, you know, maybe it's not halfway through his career yet, but at some point he did. And that's a big jump when you are like, if you think about being an illustrator, you know, when you have a pen and you draw a circle, square, or triangle, and then having to not do that anymore and do it through like an Etch-a-Sketch, you know, like that's kind of a really not accurate way of describing what Phil had to go
pretty
through.
Accurate, dude.
but no, because like you had to go and like, well, how do you make the thing go from
it was like blowing up a balloon, and it feels like you're blowing up a balloon.
it with
The
your ear,
original. Yeah.
like instead of your mouth. Like it is really just learning a new skill. And listen, some people are really good at doing things with computer programs. Typically, people that are younger than me. I don't know how to use Photoshop. Like I know how to use some very basic things, but like I can draw and I can sculpt a little bit. But like, and I think with that and a phone, I take pictures and send people, and I communicate what I need to get communicated. But I think for what Phil's done, I think that there was a point there, probably in the knots, where it was like ZBrush became ubiquitous and everybody was doing it. And even now, like a lot of 2D stuff most 2D stuff is done with digital painters, Photoshop. So, and you can get amazing results, but it is, it's just one of those things where in 10 years time, there'll be something else, like for instance, laser scanning, like it's really cheap to get laser scanners now. They're like hair dryers, and you just hit the thing, and whatever you built or whatever you have around you, you can transfer it into a computer, and then it becomes an object in the computer, and then you can manipulate it. So, look, it's all great if you know what to do with it.
Yeah. From a toy industry standpoint, is like 3D printing and getting into that aspect of it, is that something that some of the bigger companies in the toy industry are trying to embrace, or is that still something that they're resistant to? Because it feels like there's a lot of cottage industries. I mean, Kickstarters are kind of the foundation for things like that, where you're able to come in and do that thing that you love maybe for the rest of your life, hopefully, that you just want to turn that passion into your living. Is things like the cottage industry, 3D printing, is that something that bigger companies are willing to embrace, or is that something that they're still kind of holding at arm's length?
They embraced it first. I would say that like typically what used to happen when I started in the toy industry, you would build, let's just take Marvel Legends. You would build a 3-dimensional jigsaw puzzle out of clay, right? And then it's rough, and then you would mold that, and then you would pour wax into those molds, and then you could refine that wax to get all the hyper details of like the Tobey Maguire Spider-Man costume, right? We worked with a guy named Steve Kiewis. Well, I don't remember who your mold maker was, but there's a guy named Steve Kiewis we worked with in Minneapolis, and he had a guy who did all of his mold making, and it was like there were barns that were full of molds, like giant, molds. So like you don't need any of that stuff when you do 3D printing. It's a file on a computer, and then you print it out, and then you clean it. So the big companies have embraced it wholeheartedly because it saves time and money. And the mom and pop guys and the boutique teams have as well, because it saves time and money. So it gets you to the finish line quicker.
And printers are so cheap now, and like their quality is wild. So
yeah.
Before it was to print something.
You buy a 3D printer.
It was like $100,000, hundreds of thousands of dollars,
and cheaper.
Yeah. So now it's pretty affordable and pretty user friendly. If you're not me, it's pretty user friendly, but it's cool. I mean, it's wild what they can do now. What you can do now as just somebody at home. I mean, dude, some of the customizers are just making amazing stuff. Like so many talented people.
Yeah. Oh my God. Yeah.
I follow so many guys that I'm just like, what? This is awesome. Like
Josh, you had mentioned like seeing this stuff in 2019 at DesignerCon, and I remember walking around DesignerCon in 2019 and going, wow, there's somebody who there was just selling like custom Marvel Legends heads, and I'm like, this guy needs to come work for Hasbro. Like, I don't know who's doing their sculpting.
Yeah,
but I'm serious. What you can do as a fan now. I mean, like that's how I got into the industry. I was a toy customizer. I should have gone to school for toy design, but I learned on the job. But if these tools were available to me, whatever. But when I was in college, I'd have been nose deep in all this stuff.
Yeah, it's wild. So many amazingly talented people. That's crazy.
Well, I mean, I'm a big believer that like toys, you guys don't get enough love. Your names aren't out there enough. You guys don't get the recognition that you deserve, because I mean, I still remember walking into Target and grabbing that first wave of Marvel Legends off the shelf, and like how important that was to me. It's like a watershed moment in my life that I can always look back to. And that's the same, people have that with art, with music, with movies. They have those same senses of nostalgia. And Toys kind of just get, because it's a physical object at the end of the day, but there's so much more than that to the people who collect them and embrace them. So I thank you all for all of your years of providing me enjoyment and filling my shelves with happiness, because I just you guys just don't get enough love as far as I'm concerned. So thank you.
Josh, very kind of you. Listen, super deal, Josh. If this works out, we'll come back and these guys will talk about what they want to do next, which I've seen a little bit of. Very exciting. If you were at Designer Con, you may have seen it too, with a werewolf body and doing some things that are maybe bigger than that. And these guys, I've been in the room when they've talked about doing female bodies, all kinds of other stuff. I mean, there's a whole host of things that you can get lost with in kind of like this range of real gory, super horrific white space. So, fingers crossed that these guys get across the finish line.
Yeah,
absolutely. Well, we have until February 1st to get this back. Gentlemen, any last minute comments that you'd like to add before we get out of here this evening?
Josh, you really, I think you hit the nail on the head earlier on, where if people are interested, get your pledges in now, because you don't get charged right away, and you also have the ability to change that, to go back and edit it before the campaign ends on February 1st. So the reason why getting that pledge in now is integral is that a lot of people wait to jump in until it's successful, and it's kind of counterproductive as far as that goes. And also, we want to hit some stretch goals, and the only way we can do those stretch goals is if we have raised enough money to be able to afford to produce those stretch goals. So just getting pledges in early, just for whatever you may be interested in, it helps out everyone. So that, and then sharing our Kickstarter campaign. You never know who's going to see it that hasn't been made aware of it. I know that you could probably, if you're in the toy community, you could probably scroll through and see tons and tons of people sharing it. But you know what? You may be friends with people on social media that haven't seen it yet. So it really does help, just helping us get that word out.
Share it with the horror fans. I don't know how to get into that world, but I think if that could be somehow figured out, there'd be a lot of people that'd be interested in it. But yeah, just
absolutely
share it,
yeah,
fund it, do what you can. We appreciate all of it, and hopefully we get to keep doing it.
Most definitely. Well, we here at Biff Bam Pop definitely have a lot of horror fans, so I think that this is going to be right up their alley. I'm glad that you guys got to talk a little bit about the lore. I appreciate you giving so much of your time this evening. And again, I'm really hopeful that the Kickstarter is successful, because I need to get me a 3-pack of my drinkers on my shelf to go with my Mythic Legion. So selfishly, I want you guys to be successful. So
we're going to talk you into a Wendigo too.
Yeah.
Keep them Wendigo Wednesday pictures coming, and I'm all about it.
You have to see it in hand. I think it'll sell you.
The figure photography is already I'll probably before we're ended here this evening, I'll probably put my order in, so we'll get it adjusted. But nice. I need that mangler too, so we got to get those stretch goals unlocked. Yeah. So everybody go get your orders in now and make adjustments as necessary as the campaign closes. So gentlemen, greatly appreciate your time this evening.
Thank you for having us, Josh.
Yeah, thanks. Josh, thank you so much.
Appreciate it. Have a great evening.
You guys too. Thank you.
Thanks. Bye.